You know, some of the most powerful ideas in history, the ones that redraw maps and totally change how people see themselves, they don't always start in a parliament or on a battlefield. Sometimes they start in an artist's imagination. Today, we're diving into one of those stories, the rise of nationalism in 19th century Europe and the incredible clash between a hopeful dream and some very harsh political realities. Our story really kicks off right here, in the year 1848, with a French artist named Frédéric Soryu. He created this amazing series of prints that laid out his stunningly optimistic vision for what Europe could be. This quote, it just perfectly captures the heart of his dream, a world of free nations united as one. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with Soryu's artistic dream and decode its powerful symbols. Then we'll look at the long, messy journey to actually forming nations and contrast that with the powerful conservative forces pushing back. After that, we'll see how this beautiful idea started to get a dark side. And finally, we'll think about the legacy of the nation-state that we live with today. So let's start with that vision. Soryu's prints weren't just pretty pictures. They were a full-blown political statement. Think of it as a visual manifesto for a brand new world order, one that a lot of people across Europe were desperately hoping for. And this is the question we really need to ask. You have to remember, 1848 was the year of revolutions. All across Europe, people were rising up and demanding change. So how does an artist like Soryu take all that energy, all that revolutionary spirit, and translate it into a single, powerful image? What did hope actually look like back then? To really get what Soryu is saying, we've got to put on our art detective hats. Let's break down the incredibly rich symbolism he packed into his most famous print, because trust me, every little detail tells a piece of the story. Okay, so right at the center of everything is this female figure of liberty, and you really got to pay attention to what she's holding and what's lying at her feet, because those are the keys. Then you've got this long procession of people marching past her, and even a symbolic scene happening in the heavens above. First off, in one hand, she's holding the torch of enlightenment. Now, this isn't just a lamp to help her see, it's a huge symbol for the revolutionary idea that reason and knowledge, not the divine right of some king, should be what guides society. It's basically a giant no thank you to the old world of absolute rulers. And then, in her other hand, she's holding the Charter of the Rights of Man. If the torch is the big idea, this is the rule book. It's a declaration that people aren't just subjects who belong to a king anymore. They are now citizens with fundamental rights that can't be taken away. This is literally the blueprint for democracy. Now look down at the ground in the print. See all that rubble? That's not just random debris. Those are the shattered crowns and broken symbols of the old monarchies, the governments where one ruler had all the power. And this detail is so important. Soryu isn't just dreaming up a new world. He's celebrating the complete destruction of the old one. Okay, so we've seen the symbols of the revolution. Now let's turn to the people themselves. In Soryu's vision, the whole world is organized into these distinct nations, all marching together. And this brings us to the biggest political idea of the century, the nation-state. So what exactly is a nation-state? It's way more than just a kingdom. It's a very specific idea, a group of people who share a culture and history, living within clear borders, and, this is the kicker, they have control over their own government. This was a totally radical idea compared to the huge, multi-ethnic empires that ruled the day. Soryu's prints actually shows these new nations on the move, and the order here is really telling. Leading the whole parade are the United States and Switzerland, which, hey, were already republics by 1848. Right behind them is France, carrying its revolutionary flag, and then, interestingly, the people of Germany with their black, red, and gold flag. Germany wasn't a country yet, so that flag was basically a symbol of hope for a unified nation to come. This map of the time really shows you just how, well, utopian Soryu's idea actually was. I mean, take a look. Back then, places like Germany and Italy just didn't exist as single countries. They were a complete patchwork of different kingdoms and territories, all controlled by massive empires like the Austrian and Ottoman empires. Soryu was literally dreaming up a map that didn't exist. So, we have the dream. Now, it's time for the reality check. Because while artists and revolutionaries were dreaming about a Europe made of free nations, the powerful monarchies had a very different plan in mind. To really get the context for 1848, we've got to hit the rewind button a bit. After Napoleon tore across Europe spreading French revolutionary ideas, he was finally defeated in 1815. And that same year, all the major powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, got together for something called the Congress of Vienna. Their goal wasn't to build a new world, but to put the old one back together exactly as it was. And the contrast between these two visions is, well, it's night and day. Sorais dreamed of democratic republics. The Congress of Vienna put the old monarchies back on their thrones. He imagined a brotherhood of nations. They engineered a fragile balance of power between giant empires. He celebrated citizen rights and a free press. They imposed autocratic rule and heavy censorship. The whole point of the Treaty of Vienna, which was hosted by the super influential Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich, was to turn back the clock. I mean, they put the Bourbon dynasty back in charge of France, the same family that got overthrown in the Revolution. And they built up buffer states around France, not to create new nations, but just to keep French power in check. It was a direct, calculated rejection of everything the nationalists were dreaming about. But here's the thing about a big idea like nationalism, you can't just wish it away. It came roaring back in the last part of the 19th century. But this time, it had changed. The idealistic, liberal dream started to morph into something way more aggressive and, frankly, more dangerous. And the path it took was pretty tragic. That idealistic love for your own nation, the desire for freedom, it soured into intolerance of other nations. As countries started defining themselves, they began seeing everyone else as rivals. And this feeling was then used by governments to justify imperialism, building empires by taking over other places. Suddenly, national pride was an excuse for conquest. And the most explosive hotspot for all this new aggressive nationalism was the Balkans. As the old Ottoman Empire grew weaker, all these territories, like modern-day Romania, Serbia, Greece, they all fought for their independence. But the big European powers all tried to manipulate these new little countries for their own gain. This turned the whole region into a powder keg, just waiting for a spark. And in 1914, it finally exploded, kicking off the First World War. So where does all this leave us? We've gone from an artist's utopian painting all the way to the trenches of World War I. It's worth taking a moment to reflect on the absolutely profound legacy of this one powerful idea. And here's the ultimate takeaway. In a way, Sorei's dream actually was realized. The map of Europe today is, for the most part, made up of nation-states, not multi-ethnic empires. The idea won. But the reality of how it happened was a far cry from the peaceful democratic brotherhood he painted. The road to nationhood was paved with conflict, competition, and eventually, a war that shattered the world. And that brings us to a final thought. The nation-state, an idea that seemed so radical and almost crazy in 1848, became the default way we organize the entire globe. It changed everything. Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What powerful, world-changing idea is being dreamed up by some artist or thinker right now that might seem impossible today, but could define our future?